But these parents, I mean,
Well
is this,
said.
or anybody, it doesn't have to be parents, just concerned citizens, is the State Freedom Caucus network something that people can get involved in? And if so, how? Because I know people watching this show always want to get involved, always want to do something. And they're just sometimes at a loss for like, okay, but what can I do?
Yeah, well, let me tell one anecdote. You're right that people don't know who their state rep is or their state senator. And our state reps, people don't know who they are. But in South Carolina, they have been so successful at upsetting the establishment that they tell me they go to the grocery store and people say, "Hey, you're one of the Freedom Caucus guys, aren't you?" And they're taken aback by that, and they're like, "Whoa, yeah!" And so it gives them energy and it gives them power. So what I would say to your listeners is, find out if you have a Freedom Caucus. Go to our website at statefreedomcaucus.org and look at our map and see if you're lucky enough to be in one of the 11 states that we're in. And if you are in one of those 11 states, then sign up for our State Freedom Caucus's Substack or their Twitter feeds or Facebook pages. We list all those, or we can provide all of those for them, and follow them and support them. If they're not in one of those states, they should ask why. And I will say that there are a lot of states right now that are kind of in the queue, ready to have a Freedom Caucus. And so we are helping those state lawmakers come along and go through the process. But find out why their state rep isn't a Freedom Caucus member, or why they haven't set one up. And I bet the answer is going to be pretty demoralizing. It's because they don't have the listeners' interests at heart. And so just get educated, find out what's going on in your state capital, and tell 10 of your friends.
And here's the $1 million question, which I guess underpins your whole effort here. This triangle that you talk about, where it's these special interests, these bureaucrats who essentially run state governments while part-time state lawmakers are working in their regular jobs at home with their families.
Yeah.
How do we dismantle that? Where did that come from? What anchors it in place? And how do we rid our states of that?
So one of the things, we tell our State Freedom Caucus members to do 4 things. We tell them to vote together, to plan together, defend each other, and be loud. And if you do all 4 of those as a Freedom Caucus, you're cooking with gas on a gas stove. And so when it comes to the iron triangle of evil, it's all about the money. You got to follow the money. And that means the budget battle every year is the most important battle. And it will horrify you to hear this, but in most states, the budgets pass unanimously or with only a few dissenting votes. The South Carolina Freedom Caucus voted unanimously against the budget, and that was the most no votes in 50 years against the South Carolina budget. They weren't able to stop it. They offered a ton of amendments, and they embarrassed their colleagues on all of these amendments, but they weren't able to stop it. But they're applying the pressure. The other thing that I would say to your question is, a lot of the success that our state freedom caucuses are having is out of session. And this is a totally new thing, a totally new innovation that hasn't been done before. But our South Carolina Freedom Caucus, they found out that the Medical University of South Carolina was doing transgender services on minors. So the South Carolina Freedom Caucus put out a press statement and said, we know what you're doing. We're going to investigate you. We're going to look at your funding. And if any laws have been broken, we're going to bring charges against you. Within 3 months, that hospital shut down the transgender clinic and fired the lead doctor. There was no vote taken. There was no bill being considered. The South Carolina legislature was not in session. But because part-time lawmakers are now a full-time Freedom Caucus, they can wage these fights. And the best part is that now we can take what they did in South Carolina and try to do it in Mississippi, Idaho, Wyoming, Illinois, all over the country. And that's the beautiful thing, is that we can learn from each other, from all the different state freedom caucuses. So I'm just excited about what we're doing, and the best days are yet to come. But it's truly amazing. But the opposition is a formidable one, and so we're going to experience some losses. We just need to humiliate the bad guys when we do lose.
Listen, your enthusiasm and your hope is really contagious. It's really encouraging, because I think a lot of us feel hopeless. A lot of us feel the weight of the losses, especially the cultural losses that we've suffered at the hands of the leftists. And it seems what you're describing is just classic corruption, where people who have interests, whether it be, I can think of a bunch of examples here, but sometimes it's the NCAA, for example, has an interest in the transgender athlete stuff. So they give money to lawmakers that they think they can control with money. These lawmakers then rely on money, not just the NCAA. That's just an example. Sometimes it's a chamber of commerce who has a financial interest, whatever it might be. And those lawmakers, since they relied on the money from those corporations to get elected, they then are beholden to those corporations, and they're just squishes. They just vote the way that the corporations want them to vote, because otherwise they lose their money. And yes, I think you're correct. I'll be interested to wait and see this play out. But so far, your strategy has been correct. If you have principled people who aren't tied to money, they're tied to policy and morality, that's the only way to really stop the money. So I love to see it.
Yeah. And the thing is that when you watch members of Congress, like on TV, and you see them debate, you can tell that a lot of them are not that smart. And it's their full-time job. Like they should know a lot about policy and a lot of different arenas of the issues, but they're full-time. There are a lot of state lawmakers who have no idea what the issues are in front of them. And they don't have the time to read the stuff. They don't have staff. And so who's influencing their decisions? Lobbyists and the governor. And so there is no other opposition to any of these bills. There aren't, people knocking on their door saying, you know what, I wish you would oppose the occupational licensing bill for home inspectors. There's nobody knocking on their door saying oppose that. But the home inspectors and the governor and the chamber are all knocking on their door telling them to pass it. So it's no wonder that this stuff passes. But let me make one more point, because you mentioned something. There is corruption at the state level, and there is very real corruption, the kind that you see every once in a while, where like the Illinois speaker goes to jail and his jailmate was like the speaker from before that, because they all get indicted and go to jail. What I'm trying to identify and educate the public about is what I call soft corruption, which is it's technically not illegal, but it's highly unethical, and it's doing a disservice to the voters. And a couple of examples like that is in Alabama. They have this nasty culture of ducking votes. So there are 105 members in the Alabama House. I have seen bills pass 10-0, and 95 of them took a walk, because they don't want to upset leadership and they don't want to upset special interests. And this behavior is so bad that the average Alabama House member like ducks 30% of their votes. And believe it or not,
oh my gosh!
Believe it or not, in the Alabama Senate, there's a state senator who hasn't voted in 3 years.
No way! Can you stop it?
Yes, yeah. And then in Texas, and I think this almost got national attention recently, but it needs even more attention. The Republicans are firmly in control of the Texas House. I think it's like 86-64. But the speaker gives committee chairmanships to Democrats. Why?
Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.